Game Freak makes some interesting games. They've worked with Sega on games going all the way back to the Mega Drive up until fairly recently with Tembo the Badass Elephant, a game that's out on Steam. Most people don't seem to realize that this is theirs, even if they recognize it as something they've seen on storefronts. They worked on the Game Boy Camera, as well as the fairly recent rhythm action game, Harmonite, on the 3DS. If you have a 3DS and you missed out on Harmonite, please pick it up, it's really good. I guess they also worked on a bunch of Pokemon games, which is their most well-known and respected work, although their projects within that brand aren't anywhere near as interesting to me as the Pokemon spin-offs get, let alone the projects that Game Freak has themselves away from Pokemon. One of those projects being a platformer they released on the Game Boy Advance called Drill Dozer. Drill Dozer follows Jill, pilot of the Drill Dozer and daughter of Dog, the leader of the bandit gang called the Red Dozers. After their gang was ambushed by a rival gang, the Skulkers, they lost the Red Diamond, a gift Jill's mother had left behind to remember her by, as well as leaving Doug in the state that you see him whenever he's brought up in the story. So you set out in your Drill Dozer to chase after the Skulkers and rob everyone blind while trying to get back the Red Diamond, facing both the Skulkers and a corrupt police force along the way. There's quite a few things that set Drill Dozer apart from other platformers, and before we touch on any of them, I have to mention a quick thing. Until recently, I wouldn't have advised people to emulate this game. Drill Dozer uses a GBA cart with rumble functionality, and that rumble adds a lot to how satisfying the game feels to play. Fortunately, MGBA added rumble a while ago, so even when emulating this game on a PC, you can still get the full rumble functionality if you have a controller that has rumble support, which most modern controllers do. Drill Dozer starts off with simple enough controls. You get a jump button, you get a crouch, and you can even do a small dash from the crouching position. For your attack, you've got a drill that responds to both the L and R button, both rotating in a different direction. Obviously, your drill can break through walls that have cracks in them, which was the only interaction I was expecting this game to really bank on, digging holes and breaking down barriers like SteamWorld Dig, and I'd have been fine with that. Instead, Drill Dozer just keeps adding more and more mechanics that function solely on your drilling powers. So let's shift this review into second gear. There's platforms that you latch onto by drilling into them. Your drill only spins for so long, so you have to take care of the timing as you latch onto moving platforms and make your way from platform A to platform B a lot of the time. You can extend your timer on your drill too, as every stage has gear upgrades you find in them that extend how long you can keep spinning the drill as well as increase its power as you shift to the second gear. You shift gears by using your drill as normal and then letting go and pressing the button again as the meter is full, making it feel like a critical hit mechanic in an RPG. This lets you hold on to platforms longer, but also drill into harder obstacles and do more damage to enemies. There's a real difference between drilling with L and R as well, with some objects needing you to drill in one direction or the other, usually color-coded with blue and red, like Sonic-style pathways in the floor and walls that you can speedily drill through, both needing you to drill their corresponding color to go through. Drill the other way and you reverse, backing up the other way again. When you're drilling into an object and press the opposite drill button, you launch yourself backwards, which becomes important during platforming sections the further you get into the game. If this sounds like a lot to take in, it absolutely is, and the game generally eases you into all of its mechanics, giving you time to explore every single mechanic on its own before asking you to use them in conjunction with each other. This doesn't just help you get used to the new mechanics, but it helps the pacing of the game a lot, as you always get the feeling that something new is thrown your way every single stage. And every stage takes your gears away, starting you off on your first gear. So while you're testing out new ways that things interact, you're also left wondering how this will start working when you get that higher gear. You know how I mentioned that when you're drilling into something, drilling the opposite direction pushes you back? Well, the higher gear you're shifted into, the further this pushes you back. The higher the gear you're in while you're going through those speeding sections, the faster you go. and later on, they start blocking your path based on which gear you're going in. I think it's about time we kick this review into 3rd gear. Drill Dozer has 3 gears total, and usually when you get the 3rd gear, the stage theme changes to a triumphant song. In a lot of ways, it sounds like a reverse of Wario Land 4, where the change in music upon hitting the frog switch is there to make you feel anxious and want to rush to the exits instead. Drill Dozer doesn't add an extra timer or rush you more than the stage itself already does beforehand when you get the 3rd gear, leaving you to explore your new options, as it often still makes you go back to previously impassable areas. Which is where the real interesting contrast between its design and that of Wario Land 4 comes up. Where Wario Land 4 blocks off parts of the stage with special blocks that don't unlock until you've pressed the switch, Drill Dozer instead just gives you a better drill, so you feel like you're opening up those new areas instead of just being handed access to them. You're powering through the stage instead of being led through it. It's a very interesting way to invoke different feelings for what's in a lot of ways a similar design concept. A lot of the stages generally felt a lot more unique than just having a single design trend or theme to them. The more normal stages often focus on the use of one mechanic or the combination of some mechanics over others, but there's underwater and flying stages as well, which end up using the same consistent rules for drilling in your new control scheme that feels oddly unified with the base gameplay. A lot of thought went into how to tie the floating momentum of swimming with the gear shifting and enemy interaction, and I can definitely appreciate this as a change of pace, even if the flying stage is something that I can go without ever replaying again. The boss fights generally use the mechanics that the stages have taught you as well. There's a few points where I found myself frustrated with the implementation of mechanics during boss fights, as failing a sequence often has the game forcing you to redo that entire segment again. Though I still think this is preferable to a boss fight that doesn't even bother using the base game's rule sets at all. There is a demand of mastery for using your drill directions, the accuracy at which you shift gears or use the special stage gimmicks, and I think the boss fights are the moment to really bring that out. Most games that have interesting stage gimmicks and mechanics that I've played often try to rein it back in during boss fights, making it more of a basic pattern memorization sequence and dodging hazards and attacking weak spots in a more neutral sense. But even when Drill Dozer has you go through those sorts of sequences, it's still invoking the established drilling rules, which I really appreciate. Also, I've gone a long while without singing the praises of the animations, but good god, this game has some spectacular sprite work. I really love how detailed the movements in this game are, and I should probably expect this, since it's a Game Freak game on a Nintendo system, so it almost counts as a first-party Nintendo title by a lot of people's standards. But I was generally surprised at the attention to detail in just about everything here. Even just the animations for looking around have a ton of personality to them, to a point I sometimes went out of my way just to do them because I liked watching them. Something that really stood out to me as I got near the end of the game is that somehow the repetition of the formula never got tiring all game long. There's 7 zones, with 2 stages each, making for 14 levels in the game, and in pretty much all of them you have to get your 2 gear upgrades to get to 3rd gear again, and somehow the repetition never really sunk in. And I think it's entirely because of how the game is always throwing new mechanics and new ways to use the same mechanics in combination with others your way. So when you get your 2nd gear, it's not even a matter of being able to do the same things again as last time you got 2nd gear. Instead, it means you can do more involved and difficult variations of the new interactions you encountered on the stage now. It's really impressive design, and I can't think of too many games that do it this well. It also helps that the speed at which you get the gears varies most stages, so you never get used to certain moments being when you get this gear and then that. There are no repetitive beats in this game. Some stages outright give you both gears incredibly early on, while others spread them out more. The game even throws a wrench in its own format with stage starts and ends at times, so it never feels like you're going through the motions during a normal playthrough. There's also a bunch of side content that you can go for if you want more gameplay after you're done. Every stage has bonus treasures hidden in them. Some you can get if you go out of your way and think out of the box with the mechanics newly put in your path. Others require drill upgrades you can buy from the store later on, so you have to replay the stages to get them. There's also treasures that show up in the unlockable third stage of every level, which requires you to buy a special map to access. These third stages are usually harder versions of whatever challenge the main stage wanted you to do, but also much shorter than the other two main stages, just testing your ability once to make sure you really understood the mechanic and then letting you go. I didn't really expect it going in, but Drill Dozer ended up becoming my new favorite puzzle platformer on the Game Boy Advance, a position that was previously held by Wario Land 4. It's a fantastic game that never feels like it's repeating itself across the 5 or so hours it takes to beat it, and I would heartily recommend it to everyone looking for a good GBA game to play. Make sure you play it on the newest version of MGBA if you emulate it so you can get the rumble feature on your controller, because it adds a lot. I'm sad to have been one of the many people who used to overlook this gem, because, man, it absolutely is one of the best GBA games. And whenever I mentioned that I was going to play it, or that I am playing it, people would pop up and go, yeah, no, that's my favorite GBA game, and now I can see why. Wow, I'm actually really amazed at myself. I managed to go a whole review of Drill Dozer without making the obvious joke that you break walls, like Dogi. Yeah, okay, I had to do that. I'm actually really happy that there are still games this good out there that I haven't played yet. You don't really come across like a new favorite of a system that often, especially not when you go back to old systems where you kind of feel like you've explored everything as is. It's always nice to know that there's more out there that you just don't know about yet. The next bunch of videos are also going to be about games that I don't really know about that well. Most of them I hadn't even heard of until fairly recently, and one of them is even like a town building and dungeon building game on the Super Nintendo. That's an action RPG, which it hits every checkbox that I could possibly want, and I never even heard of it. And it has a fan translation, so that should be really good. As always, this video has been brought to you by people supporting me on Patreon. If you would like to become one of the scrolling names that you see on the screen right now, you can head over to patreon.com/AboveUp, and I will see ya.